Good evening and welcome to the final Inside Government for the fall 2017 semester here at CU Community College. This is a show that is broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, and the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. We are delighted to have in the studio with us City Manager Jeff DYGERT, as well as the Director of Community Projects, CHRISTINIA, to give us a city update on a number of projects that are going on. It is a fairly busy time. While we might have spent the last 3 months talking about election 2017, the city staff has been working on a number of items, including the repaving of downtown Genesee Street, the new Equal Rights Heritage Center being built across from City Hall, finding out what to do with the Cowlitz lot on State Street, as well as some investments in the Shines Theater. But more importantly, yesterday they got a little bit of good news from Albany with an unexpected $698,000 to replace lead pipes, among other things. So we'll talk about all of that with both of them. Thank you both for coming back in.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for having us.
So let's talk about lead pipes first. $698,000. What's that money going towards?
We are still feeling that out. We were
so this was a surprise.
Relatively speaking, the state contacted our Director of Municipal Utilities only approximately 10 days to 2 weeks ago to discuss the potential of this funding being available.
So you didn't apply, there's no application for this? This is just somebody in Albany being Santa Claus early.
It was targeted based on some criteria that they used to figure out where they wanted to target that. I think it was a total of $20 million statewide that's going to be divided up.
So you're getting over more than 6% of what's available in the state.
Right, we're getting an equal share to the city of Syracuse, which obviously has much more housing stock than we have.
So, so where do you think this money will be going?
The concept for the program is to replace water laterals, water service between the water main and the water meter. So everything.
So on private property for houses or commercial sites?
Houses.
And will there be a local share for this?
There is not a specific local share on this. There's still a lot of details that have to be discussed with us. We don't even know all the details right at this point.
So how much does it cost now to do something like that?
It depends.
It depends. I think
so
$2,000 to $4,000 is not unheard of for a residential water service between the connection. Well, normally we'll service to.
So this could do 300 to 400 houses out of 10,000 properties in the city of Auburn.
Possibly. There's going to be administrative costs, though, and other things we're going to have to look at. So we're waiting to work with Department of Health and receiving the grant agreement from them, and that will provide more stipulations as to how the funds can be used.
But you assume people are going to have to apply to City Hall. How will they? I know it's so early.
It's a great question. We don't know how we're going to roll the program out. There was 3 criteria that the governor's program used to make the awards. Housing stock that was primarily built before the 1940s, which more than likely had maybe some lead components in the system. Children that have been documented with higher than normal lead levels in their blood, and
which is information that you get from the health department.
That's right. And the third was, I think it was low to moderate income levels, and whether or not those were above the statewide thresholds. So, so those are the criteria that we're aware of that they use to help make the awards. And I think we're going to end up. There's a good possibility, but we'd like to not. This is an opportunity to do a citywide program, so we'd like to make that hopefully available citywide.
But you have more than, I'm assuming, 400 properties that need this type of work.
We're assuming, so our housing stock is older. We definitely meet that criteria. You know, people have slowly been doing water service improvements, though, particularly under the water meter program. So we'll have to see what's out there, and but it's going to take some staff time to roll out, and whether we want to get into doing work on private property as a municipality, we'll have to decide that.
Because that is something you don't do currently.
That's correct.
Right. So is this something that we most likely won't see rolled out until the spring or summer of next year?
Probably at least. The one thing to keep in mind is that the money is there for the taking, I guess you could say that, but the council has to agree to accept the funding first and foremost to get started.
And previous councils have been when it comes to state and federal funds, and we'll get to another project in a few moments, not always the easiest ones to get councils to agree to.
So, you know, there are still a lot of unanswered questions, how we would structure the program, and largely that's seems to, at this point, be up to the municipality on how to structure the program. So we have to have those discussions internally.
So let's have you back in the spring to talk about, give us an update on that as well. Also in today's paper, there was a meeting on Calitz yesterday.
Yes.
That was, Calitz is the lot across, is on Upper State Street. It was a department store, it was knocked down. It was supposed to be the site of the Musical Theater Festival. Litigation held that up, stymied those efforts. What happened this week?
We both were in attendance last night at the public meeting.
How many people attended?
Probably 20 to 30, I would say.
Okay.
So good turnout, not as good as the first meeting, but a good turnout from the standpoint of people providing feedback. They were very willing to you know, talk to the facilitators, and there was an opportunity to write notes regarding the 4 concepts that were presented for
I think
the
photo
site.
on today is Jack Hardy, who is he a civil service commissioner?
Correct.
Yes.
Putting some notes up on that.
He also helps put together the Founders Day event during the summertime, so he's got a good connection to downtown. One thing to also keep in mind, as long as we're on the air having this discussion, is that even though there were 20 to 30 people in attendance last night, there is still opportunity for people that wish to go onto the auburnsparks.com website and provide comments even at this
And for the
point.
Auburn Sparks, can you get to that through the Auburn City Government website?
I believe there's a link.
I believe so.
Maybe it's under Planning
So,
Department.
I was with the mayor today earlier. He and I spoke at Boyle Center. We're an entertainment group. But one of the things is he said there were 4 or 5 different plans of what do you do with the property. So what were some of those?
So 4 concepts in total were presented, and a number of them were trying to get some feedback on different elements that could be incorporated based upon the feedback from the first meeting.
So I've heard green space, bandstand, I think I heard bathrooms.
Bathrooms, yep.
So where are you in the process?
So we were looking for, each concepts had basically a like and a dislike column, and we were hoping people would take the elements in each of the drawings and tell us what they liked about it and what they did not like about it, and then in the end to vote for your favorite concept.
And did anything win?
Yes. So
Overwhelmingly?
we had, yes. So we
Okay.
had 2 concepts that were overwhelmingly favorable. So we're going to take a look at the likes and dislikes in those. There may be some
So what
compilation.
were the 2? I'm sorry, what are the 2?
So the 2 that were really liked were the one that had a water wall feature,
Okay.
and the other one had restrooms and a bandstand basically incorporated.
So I know supporters of naming the area Tommy Walsh, I guess is more of a policy issue for you, would like to name it after the actor Tommy Walsh. First of all, is that being done?
Is it?
Is it being done?
Is it being named at this point?
Is it being named?
No, there hasn't been discussion on anything, you know, firm on what's going to happen
So
with that.
if you do
so we're
name-
taking some input, and I will say that that's one of the things that we've been discussing with council for a period of time now, and hope to get wrapped up in the next few months, is that a policy on public monuments and things like that, which essentially
naming policy.
could wrap some of those types of items in there. It's difficult. We end up with a lot of requests to install or erect monuments in honor of a number
And not all of those
people.
individuals are coming up with cash. It's different when they're coming up to pay for the whole thing.
There's a number of factors involved,
Okay.
absolutely.
One of the other items that was in there was that you got some preliminary test results back for, did you get preliminary or did you get all your test results back for the environmental work there?
Preliminary test results in that, a couple of the test results came back and they were in question, so they were going to be retested to make sure that the conclusions are accurate, and
When will you get those results?
another couple of weeks probably.
And is that something you'll share with Attorney Joseph Camardo? He's
We'll share them with the public.
Well, okay, that's fine, but I guess this came up today at this Boyle Center meeting that I was at, and said, if you're going to spend any taxpayer money, wouldn't you get him to sign off on anything before you go through litigation again? Is that something the city's considering?
Well, we're moving forward with the project, going through the motions of doing a project the proper way, doing our environmental studies that need to be done, regardless of the way it should be done.
So you could do it with whether he signs off or not?
At this point,
Do you think that's fiscally sound? In the sense that you could be tied up in court again, as the Musical Theater Festival and other entities were the last time around?
Well, there's discussions that could be had. There's been maybe some communication between parties, and at this point we have not heard anything from. Okay.
And I asked that question because it came up today at this meeting, it's a community group of about 25, 30 seniors, and they asked the simple question, and they were just curious. And they also noticed in the Citizen article this morning he wasn't quoted, and usually that is a bellwether of where you're going. Where, if you do, whether it's the bandstand or the waterfall, which sounds kind of cool, where would the money come from?
We're still in
I'm
the
asking
process.
you policy questions.
Yep.
She's getting the money questions. Okay.
So we have the design money secured. That is CDBG money that's being used to help.
Community development block grant.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So federal money to facilitate the design up through construction documents. At which point, right now, we're still working on construction monies, and those have yet to be determined.
Any idea how much this might cost?
It depends upon the features that ultimately get included into the site.
So green space is a lot cheaper than a waterfall.
It is. You know, you could probably pocket parks like this, you know, 1.2 to 1.7, depending upon what's in there.
At this stage, would you see going to the general fund? I guess this is a money question for you. Would you see this being part of your budget to go to the general fund or bond for this if you can't get private donations?
It's a possibility. I think we're going to look to see what the private community would be willing to do.
And you're having conversations with them now?
There are some conversations going on about that, but again, you know, whether or not any of those foundations are interested in what the final design concept ends up being, because we are going through this design process to get community input, and the community should be heard, right?
So across the street from where you both work at 24 South Street is going to be the new Equal Rights and Heritage Center. What is being built?
A 75,000 square foot, kind of 75.
I was going to say 75,000.
75,000 would be
what
wonderful.
What games are we going to be playing in there?
Ooh, what could I put in that type of building? So 7,500 square foot, 3 kind of compartmentalized structures that will all flow together and basically provide visitor services for the city of Auburn and the Finger Lakes in the region.
And do you have tenants already that are going to go in there?
So there are 2 tenants currently considering that location. That's correct. Yep.
So the mayor said who they were today.
Okay.
So it's the Business Improvement District.
Yes, so downtown bid,
and
their offices and the county tourism office. Okay. That's correct.
Any other offices that will be in there, or just this interactive tourism piece?
I'm not aware of any other program.
There may be a small presence for potentially city staff or something like that, but
whoever wants to get away from 24 South Street and wants air conditioning. Okay. When will construction start?
We're hoping late January, early February. So staff is in the process of preparing the bid award documents as the construction bids were already let and received. We're hoping to do that the December 7th
I know you have some
city
vendors
council
who
meeting.
are doing some of the local work, electrician, plumbing.
Yes, yep, electrician and plumbing, all were local. And then we're hoping a lot of the subcontractors will be local as well.
And you expect this, I jokingly said to the mayor, this will be open before Election Day 2018 because the governor's up next year. I'm assuming that is still the time frame.
That is still the time frame.
Okay. So other than the land that the city's coming up, there is no city expense other than your city staff time. There's no direct contract.
There is.
Oh, there is?
Yes. So the design funding that was received through the CFAs in the last round, that is a city 50-50 match. So $289,500 for that award is a 50-50 city match. So there is $289,000 of cash from general fund.
Any expectation that there will be other money in the construction?
We're hoping not. Bids came back under the engineer's estimate. The only one over was mechanical. All the others were either 25% or even more under the engineer estimate. So we're hopeful that there's enough funding to take care of any field change orders that would happen during construction.
So the city could be on the hook for part of this?
I don't foresee that happening. So
okay, I understand you don't foresee it, but it could occur.
It could. I mean, anything happens during construction projects, as I know you're aware.
I only asked that. Well, yes, unfortunately, I do. I asked that because I think many people in the community are under the impression, other than the land, there was no city contribution.
No, there is cash already that's been committed, and that's documented through council resolutions.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean the general public may.
Right.
They may have been. Felt that they were told
well, and that's what we
down.
wanted to talk about today.
Okay.
And
so once it's all built, operational costs though are all the cities. Am I correct on that?
At the moment, they are.
We're exploring some other potential avenues to either get that reimbursed or have some other revenue streams to cover that. So
I asked this question. It's kind of in two parts. One is, do you have any idea how much it'll cost, whether you get some of this covered or not? Any idea how much it'll cost? We've got some estimates that hover in the $100,000 to $150,000 range. So I asked that question because you're also under a 2% tax cap, and we were talking in the hallway with Senator Stewart. We were talking about unfunded mandates. So if you have another $100,000 that's put on your burden, right. That kind of closes off whatever else you can use for other operations of the city, because. Right. If I remember correctly, how much could you raise last year in the general fund for under taxes? We were around 1.2, I think, if I remember correctly. No, I meant the tax cap. What was the differential? The actual number, it doesn't get much beyond 200,000. So what I'm saying is this could be half of it. Right. So my point here is, if you don't have that, does that make it tougher to put a budget together? Absolutely. Something we have to consider. So where are you with the Court Street lot? Because we did get a visitor, a viewer question on that. Where are you on the Court Street lot? We are still waiting for our engineering department to finish up design drawings on that so that we can do an updated seeker application. State Environmental Quality Review. We've tried to get away from acronyms. Yep, sorry about that. That's okay. I am fairly confident at this point that in my discussions with some of the neighbors that had expressed concern that we've reached a compromise on that to do a modest expansion of that parking lot. And will that be a city parking lot, or will that be owned by the YMCA? City parking lot. So is the YMCA out of the discussions at this stage? Other than what they need? There's not an active discussion going on right now. I think we've reached a point in the conversation where we've got a plan that satisfies everyone's needs at this point. So the viewer question was, when they saw that you were going to be on television, they wanted to ask this question: why did you cut down some trees? I will tell you, I vaguely know that when I drive on Court Street to go to a basketball game, there's some trees missing, but why was the tree cutting done before there's a plan? There was actually some tree cutting getting done anyway. There was separate from this whole issue. Yes, and it just kind of rolled into where there was some discussion about the parking lot happening, and we knew that regardless, some of those trees were going to have to go. So it was an opportunity that was taken at the time while crews were there doing some other work to get that taken care of. So let's go 500 feet north from the Court Street lot for the repaving of Genesee Street. First of all, I think when you were here in the spring, your hope was it would start this fall. Clearly it has not, and that's okay for a lot of people, but where are you in the process? And what happened? So, yep. Go ahead. Okay. So West Genesee Street, just for the viewers' benefits, we're going to be repaving from Route 326 over by McDonald's. So we're going from McDonald's up to South all the way Street. Through downtown at the intersection there of South Street. And you're making a little jog in towards the Shines Theater. That's correct. We're going to try to finish that little piece and get that whole area real nice. New. So, right.
So it's a pretty long project for us and a large project area. So we're trying to work consistently with DOT and.
So why didn't it occur this year? Just
so,
timelines?
Yep. So the Americans Disability Act requirements for access from the curb ramps, as you
curb
have the
cuts that you get in there.
That's
okay.
right, for the pedestrian crossings. The grade percentages changed and they're more stringent. So our sidewalk plan for the number of sidewalks we were going to replace no longer met the ADA requirements. Okay. So DOT, in order to comply with our funder, we had to go back out and resurvey the entire project area for sidewalk replacement and ensure that we were going to meet the basically grade percentage to meet the ADA
so when
requirements.
You said your funder, how much is this going to cost?
So this is about a $3.9 million project.
And who's paying for it?
80% is federal, 15% is New York State, and the city funds the remaining 5%.
So the city's percentage there, I got to do my math correctly.
Trying to remember.
400,000?
Yeah, about 400,000. But we also have betterments, as we call them, and we have water and sewer improvements that are going to be done as part of the project.
So they're included in that cost?
They are not. That's on top.
Okay.
So I think it was 250 or 300,000 for the water, and it was under 50,000 for sewer improvements.
So when do you think this project starts?
It is out to bid right now. So bids are due back, I think, the first week of December. We'll award bids, and it is scheduled to start, I think, either April 1st or, depending upon weather, if it's a little nicer in March, we could start working on those betterments that I spoke of.
And finish in 2018?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
They have 180 days.
And I'm assuming one of the reasons you've got NYSEG and every other utility company in the world, it seems, downtown,
yes.
is they want to make cuts. They got to do it now, not after.
Yes, please don't rip up our new street.
But can you prevent them from doing that, unless there's an emergency?
If there's an emergency, we cannot. If there's a break, obviously they have to access the roadway.
So I don't want to get away from Genesee Street without talking about a policy issue that is involved here. And this is, the mayor was given a good going over today at Boyle Center. You know where I'm going with this, and that is the change in parking from nosing in to backing in. Why is this?
So the Traffic and Safety Division of DOT has basically decided or put out a new standard that the rear or back-in angle parking is safer for pedestrians and busy downtown areas than the front pull-in parking. And so because they are our funding agency, have basically requested that the city start using the new standard for this project.
Wish that they use the new standard, but if you don't do it, you don't get the money?
Well, that is a possibility. So the parking issue is going to be something that we need to take up over the winter time and have some discussion.
So City Council could still say not do back-in parking?
There's a possibility, but it would jeopardize the funding.
So that's what I'm asking.
It would jeopardize the project.
Okay. So the other thought is that you can go to parallel parking.
That's correct.
You do lose 36. 30,
it was over 30 spaces.
30 spots.
Yep.
You could go to that system, though. And is that a determination that will be made by staff, or will that be made by the City Council?
That would end up more than likely being a policy decision made by council. You know, there are some other potential options, and some of the things we've talked about with the engineers were to try to reduce the impact of the back end. To actually potentially widen the spaces to make it easier for people, at least for the first couple of years as they get used to that. So that's definitely a consideration. That's.
I mean, I think I will tell you. I think that every downtown vendor who has outdoor seating, when this starts getting in, is going to be able to sell tickets, because I think it is going to be a sea change for people. And I'm not saying that in a nasty way, but I do think that it is going to be an issue. Just as going to diagonal was an issue for the city back when it went away from parallel. You have made some changes, though, in the parking garage to get people to get into the parking garage. What have you done?
2-hour free parking. So in the garage itself, not in the lower level.
Okay. So has that driven?
I honestly don't know what the numbers are looking like right now. I know that the lot currently on Lincoln Street is still being actively utilized. So as this other project, the Equal Rights Heritage Center, starts to take shape. And
those people got to find someplace else to park.
right.
Because is that 7,500 square foot building taking up the whole parking lot, or how much of it is it?
I would say it's about half, and the rest of that is outdoor space. There is going to be no parking on site.
So seating, there'll be tables, other things.
I don't know if there's outdoor seating. I'm trying to remember if that's off the rear, but the centerpiece is really a very large pedestrian area out front.
Okay.
So
I did 2 quick items because we've got about 5 minutes left. Work is underway. If you drive down South Street right now, there's a large, I think it's blue, at least the one I looked at yesterday, blue dumpster in front of the Shines Theater. What's being done? Because I know they reported to you 3 weeks ago.
Right. It's asbestos abatement and some other hazardous materials abatement in the building.
And how is that going?
The last I heard, which was yesterday, going well. Projected timeline roughly 3 to 4 weeks for completion of that component.
Is asbestos going into the Auburn landfill? Is construction debris or however it's permitted?
I'm not sure where they're actually hauling that, to be
either.
honest with you.
So other than the, Jenny Haynes was here with Ed Honori and a representative from Eric Smithers last week to talk about the Shines there. What's the city, other than the $800,000, which is for this remediation of the asbestos, is there any other city commitment financially right now?
some staff time. So we are assisting them right now.
Cash.
Right. At the moment, there's no other cash, but we are assisting them with a grant application that the Shines Theater Group is going to be talking about with council Thursday night. And
they do have some requests in for Regional Economic Development Council money.
They do have a CFA, yep.
And in that particular case, they'll hear about that in the next couple of weeks?
Yes, I'm hoping next week.
Oh, the governor, okay.
So we're hoping next week,
okay.
Yep.
If they fall short on that, this comes to a budget issue. Do you see the city coming in with more money for the Shines?
I don't know. Again, that would be a council decision and a tough one at that.
Tough one for them to decide or for you to put it before them?
No, it's easy to put it before them.
Okay.
No, tougher for them to decide on what
but
they're
when you
gonna
put
do.
something before them, the assumption is that you support it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I did, before we leave, I did want to talk about some financial issues that are with the city. City adopted a budget back in June. Any highlights you want to mention?
No, you know, it was a really quiet budget cycle as far as that went. You know, wasn't a lot of drama or anything like that. It went through relatively smoothly. There wasn't a tax increase.
You would like to have drama kept to TNT and
yes, that would be nice.
And cable television.
And at this point in time,
or the Royal House.
at this point in time, staff did a nice job putting that budget together. We're on track.
So you're through the first quarter. First quarter ends the end of September. Revenues on track?
Yeah. Revenues are on track. Sales tax is down a little bit. It's less than 1%.
Does that have you worried?
Not necessarily. Again, it's less than 1%, so it's not a huge hit, although it is a little bit of a hit. Some of that we might attribute to we can't track it, unfortunately, but fuel costs have remained relatively stable, and that typically has a big impact.
And that does have an impact as they go up.
Absolutely, but they don't, in the budget reports or the sales tax reports we get, it's not divided out. There's no
I was
way
just
for us
thinking
to
of a
track
show we
that.
should have in the spring, and that's having you, the county, and state senator in here, a state senator here, talk about how you get sales tax information, because the public would think in the 21st century, with everything I can get on my phone, you can't get data of where that money comes from.
Right.
Last two quick questions. Talked a lot of projects in process. What else is on your agenda for 2018?
Well, we're actually in the next couple of weeks through December, we're going to be discussing the roughly imminent closure of the landfill, or what we're going to do as it maxes out. The estimates currently are 3 to 4 more years of useful life expectancy in the current landfill. We could. Time, money, so those are things that are being weighed out. In the coming weeks, we'll have a presentation to City Council. I believe December 14th will be the first presentation by staff to the Council of 11 different options that staff has explored. So we want to make sure that the public is aware that we've looked at practically every option that's out there. We'll recommend 2 or 3 to the council for further consideration. And hopefully by the middle of January, if we can get the council on board, we can adopt a plan to help guide our budget process and operations over the next few years.
Hopefully you come back in February, talk about, we didn't even talk about the Owasco walk.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you come on and talk about that. 30 minutes goes very, very fast as they keep pointing to me over here saying, wrap it up, Guy, wrap it up.
Yep.
So we do want to thank you both and hope you'll come back in the spring, whether it's together or separately, to talk about these individual items for a city update. But we have had City Manager Jeff DYGERT, as well as Capital Projects Director CHRISTINIA SELVEK. We want to thank you both for your time and switching around schedules so you could both be here, and we appreciate that. We hope to have them back here in the spring. We return on Thursday with our final hard-hitting interview, of course, on Beyond the Front Page with Old St. Nick. We'll be talking with Santa as we normally do at the end of the semester. There'll be a little harder questions than these two and Senator Seward received. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your thoughts for guests or questions at cozguytho@aol.com or Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for CUU Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good evening and have a great tomorrow.